morning, or now almost afternoon. Here we go. Are we up there? Drive north along the Pacific coast, and eventually you'll find yourself in Macaw Bay, on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State. In the tide pools that line the shore, you'll find mussels, barnacles, snails, and other shallow water-dwelling creatures. If there aren't enough of their natural predators around, the mussels are not terribly well behaved. They'll eat up all the food, they'll kill off their competitors, and eventually they'll take over the entire waterfront. Curiously, this happens in some places, but not in others. For a long time, we had no idea why. Ecologists spent years studying the ecosystem's dynamics and finally found that one species was the key to everything working right. They call this species the keystone species, the linchpin. What do you think the single most powerful species was? No, really, what do you think? The single most powerful predator? It wasn't the killer whale. It wasn't the hammerhead shark. It wasn't even Steve Bannon. No, it was the starfish, the lovely five-armed starfish. A natural predator of mussels, starfish keep the rest of the ecosystem balanced between predator and prey. This finding changed our understanding of how systems work, and it might help you and me change the world someday. It took me a long time to find my starfish. After I figured out that practicing law wasn't my passion, I spent about a decade working in education. I built and then helped to fund some amazing projects led by smart and passionate people. But as the gleam of those projects wore off, a quiet thought began to nag at me, that insistent A note that we heard about this morning. No matter how great the projects were, they weren't leading to lasting progress. Our funders, our boards, our metrics people, our comms teams, everyone was pushing us to focus on goals we could measure and lay claim to, not on the changes that would matter to real kids, real moms and dads, real neighborhoods. Real lives don't happen inside of projects. They cross every divide and every sector. But we were throwing billions of dollars at projects, and those projects were fiddling on the edges of symptoms, because symptoms were what we could claim credit for fixing. And so we fueled a massive growth in projects without a commensurate increase in progress on the core issues that real people face. Perhaps you've had a similar thought nag at you. Maybe when you notice you're hitting your milestones, but not getting to the change that got you into the business in the first place. Maybe when you get that sense that you're having the same conversations with your colleagues or friends that you've had years before and the year before that. And so on a cold night in January in 2011, I tucked my two little girls into bed, and on the cusp of deciding to have a third who was born the next year, I went downstairs and watched this.
And over the next 10 years, with so many baby boomers retiring from our classrooms, we want to prepare 100,000 new teachers in the fields of science and technology and engineering and math.
The biggest challenges and opportunities of the 21st century depend on STEM. We needed 100,000 more STEM teachers to inspire millions more kids to love those subjects and to use them to solve our planet's, our country's, our neighborhoods' challenges. As a mother, a citizen, an activist, this call fired me up. But what I knew, and you knew too when you heard it, was that if we were counting on government alone to solve that problem, it was never going to happen. So I rallied a cross-section of organizations. I invited corporations, nonprofits, museums, foundations, and government agencies to each make a commitment to contribute something unique and powerful to getting us to that goal. That was how 100K in 10 was born. In the first 5 years, we built the network that could get us to the 100,000. What started as 28 organizations became 280. 100K in 10 nourished trust and connection among those partners, because without trust, without connection, you can't be vulnerable. And without vulnerability, you can't learn. We created a vibrant learning exchange so that people could share what was working and what wasn't working. And then we built an innovation hub so that people could create together new solutions to stubborn problems. At the 5-year mark, halfway to our 10-year goal, we celebrated that our 280 partner organizations had together prepared 40,000 new STEM teachers for classrooms across the nation. And we announced that we were on track to hit the 100,000 goal on time in 10 years. That moon we were shooting at, those 100,000 teachers, they were in reach. I should have been celebrating. After all, here we were, on our way to hitting a goal no one thought was possible when we started. Instead, that same quiet thought that had nagged at me 5 years earlier reared its head again. I had started the work to go beyond projects, to build the kind of network that could make lasting progress. Yet here I was, committed and passionate about a project, fiddling on the edges with symptoms and leaving the underlying problem very much as I found it. I realized with a sinking feeling that we might well meet the goal of injecting 100,000 STEM teachers into classrooms around the country and barely make a scratch on the real challenges that those teachers faced. And then I thought, what if the success of this effort was actually allowing us to avoid the only challenge that mattered? Not enough people wanted to become teachers or were willing to stick through with it in the classroom in the first place. What if every other challenge could be traced back to that? I began to see that we were on track to hit this goal. We'd pack up our bags and call the mission complete. We'd go home only to discover that we had set our eyes on the wrong target all along. Are you still with me? If you're on a sinking boat and all you're doing is bailing it out, you don't plug the holes, either you're bailing out forever or you're going down. It's that simple. At 100K in 10, we had a choice. Bail out the STEM teacher system forever in Sisyphean 10-year cycles of 100,000 teachers and ignore the reasons the boat was sinking, or start plugging the holes. But how does anyone plug the holes of a boat as big as our education system? 4 million teachers, 50 million students, 100,000 schools. If you'll pardon me jumping off the sinking boat and back into the ocean, we needed our starfish. We needed to find the equivalent of our keystone species. What matters the most when it comes to inspiring people to come and teach? What matters the most to getting people to stay in the classroom and keep inspiring more kids? Just as ecologists had to understand all of the components to the ecosystem in Macaw Bay before they could find the starfish, we needed to understand all of the components of the STEM education system to find ours, to find the pressure points with the highest leverage. So that's what we set out to do. We jumped our S-curve. We started by polling hundreds and then thousands of teachers, principals, and other stakeholders in the system, and we asked them, why is it so hard to get and keep great teachers, especially in STEM? The responses we received, they were surprising, they were inspiring, most of all, they were intimidating. We heard all different things, By the end, we had a list of more than 100 distinct challenges to why it was hard to get and keep great teachers, especially in STEM. So we categorized them. Those 100 problems laddered up to themes like professional growth and the prestige of teaching. The themes gave us clarity, all right, but no direction for what to do next. If you asked me how to get from Providence to Macaw Bay and I gave you a list of the cities in between, that's the look my 5-year-old would give you. But let's say I categorize them for you, like by most congested cities or cities with the best dry rub barbecue joints. Tasty, but this is what my 9-year-old becoming a teenager tomorrow would say. What we needed was a map that showed us how the problems connected, which ones contributed to which ones were actually symptoms of deeper problems. We needed a map that could point the network toward the most important barriers so that we could come together and tackle them. Adapting tools from ecology and network sciences, we did something that no one working on a social sector problem had done before. We mapped the entire ecosystem. We went back to our partners and teachers, and we asked them one simple question in an online game. We said, if you chose any of those 100 problems at random and A improved, what would happen to B? Would it be better? Would it get worse? Or would it stay the same? More than 500 experts weighed in with more than 22,000 votes. And all of a sudden, for the first time, we could see everything in one place. All of the problems, all their root causes, and everything they affect. This is what the STEM teaching ecosystem looks like. Because we had built a network, we could figure out where everyone was working. And so we asked everyone, what are you focused on? So that people can more easily find their allies and start to collaborate and work together. We commissioned research so that, as someone said yesterday, we could build off the shoulders of giants and not start from scratch. And then we searched out bright spots so that we could take inspiration from what was working, and so we didn't recreate the wheel. And we did discover our keystone species. In STEM teaching, our starfish has 6 arms. 6 arms with the greatest influence on the rest of the problems to getting and keeping great teachers. There's money, but not maybe as you guessed. It's in the form of scholarships and loan forgiveness, so the teachers don't carry debt as they enter their careers. There's culture, time to collaborate, time for professional development, and accountability for creativity, not for rote memorization. Teachers in the room and former teachers, you know what that means. And then there are materials, because as every artisan knows, tools do matter. We needed high-quality computer science curriculum, and we needed strong science standards. 6 arms, 6 keystone species that have the most influence on the rest of the system. We also learned this. Our ecosystem in education has 2 characteristics that mirror every other ecosystem in the natural world. Everything is connected. So any one program or effort won't make a lasting dent in any big problem you care about. But everything isn't equally connected, and it's not randomly connected either. That non-randomness helps us to simplify so that we can find our starfish. And when we found our starfish, we know where to focus so that the ecosystem can flourish. This is science. It's the best possible hypothesis given data and given inherent uncertainties. Some answers will change, just like they do in the natural world, as we gather more data and test more assumptions. In the past, we had one person's opinion, or maybe a room full of opinions. With this approach, we can distill thousands of diverse and expert opinions into a coherent and actionable whole. As our ecologist friend Eric Berlow said, this is at the frontier of how we think about problems in a way that embraces the complexity of our world, the interconnection of its challenges, and the uncertainties we face. The map points a new way for social change. Rather than hundreds of separate projects, each working independently on hundreds of problems, we can leverage the commitment, trust, and learning of a network so that all the necessary players together work to make sure that the keystone species stay safe and our ecosystem can thrive. Spurred by a president who preached hope and dared us to dream, 100K Intent started by asking how we could fill our country's classrooms with 100,000 excellent STEM teachers. I didn't know when we started if we could reach that mountaintop. But I knew the only way up was by working and learning with a network of likely and unlikely allies. So we built that network. When it became clear that we would hit the goal and that it wasn't enough, we got to the heart of the matter. Why did this country need us in the first place? It was only when we asked that question, when we got to the core, that we were able to find our starfish. Make no mistake, it's a long road from Providence to Macaw Bay. That quiet voice still whispers of mountaintops as yet unsummited. We don't have all the equipment we'll need on this journey, so we're going to have to build it. And we'll make wrong turns even with our map. But this journey, it's about fixing and keeping healthy the very ecosystem in which every student and teacher breathes. It is the journey we have to take. So what does this mean for you, for all of us? First of all, our data and the processes, everything we did, the approach, it's live and it's in beta. Check it out and add your voice to the map. We need your perspective. But at least as important, this is a room full of change makers. What jolts you awake in the morning? What nagging thought keeps you up at night? Maybe it's professional. Maybe right now, for you, it's personal. Now that you're thinking about it, let me ask you this. What if it's the exact wrong problem to be thinking about? What if to solve that problem, you need to first find your starfish? To get there, you're going to need to do 3 things. You'll need to understand the challenge, the real challenge, the core challenge, from every perspective, surprising, diverse, every side, every angle. You'll need to map the interconnections between those root causes to get to your keystone species. And then once you've found it, you'll want to partner with likely and unlikely allies, because you're going to need all of them to protect those keystone species and tackle the root causes head on. Are you ready? Let's go meet our starfish. Thank you.